Welcome to the winning bid, automating the RFP process. All right, well, welcome to this very first episode of The Winning Bid, Mastering the RFP Process. And this will be your go-to resource for all things tenders, RFPs, RFIs, RFQs, and so on. I'm your host, Eric Everard, and I'm thrilled to have you in this show today. I'm here joined by Patrick and Evra, who are co-founders of the company SEQUESTO. And welcome, everybody. Patrick, let's start with you. You have been working with RFPs and RFQs in general for a substantial part of your life. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a bit about the experiences you had, especially personal experiences and how things went, but also how things went wrong sometimes?
I'll gladly do that, Eric, and thank you for having us here in the show. If I look back at my career, I spent most of my career in the cybersecurity space, where I have been running and building sales and marketing teams across Europe. And throughout my career, my sales and primarily pre-sales team were very, very frequently confronted with all sorts of requests coming in from the customer. Could be starting off with an RFI, a request for information. The customer had this great idea, had a plan on something, didn't know yet how to handle it, and they would send out a request for information. Typically, a request for information is packed with a lot of questions. They want to learn from you. Now, I'm going back to the days before people would simply browse the internet and find all the relevant information. So in the early days, they would they would create a book that they would send out to multiple parties, and they were expecting those multiple parties to answer all kind of questions and explain all kind of things on how they would tackle a specific topic. Then there were other formulas like the customer knows what he wants. He would then send out an RFP, because what they're after then is they know exactly what they want, but they want to get more detail on pricing, the who, the how, and the when. So again, plenty of questions there. They would also be looking for proof points. Have you done this before? Are you capable of delivering a project like this? Is your company stable enough, financially stable enough? So next to questions that you would need to answer, very frequently you had to deliver all kind of proof points. Next to that, my team, as we were in the security business, when we had large enterprises that planned on acquiring and implementing some of our technologies, they would want to make sure that we as a company were doing all the proper things. So they would send out what we used to call a vendor assessment questionnaire, where they could score us on how well we were doing and whether we were delivering our product and services up to their expected level of quality and assurance. So again, they are typically a large Excel spreadsheet with hundreds of questions on all kinds of topics. And what I've experienced personally throughout all these years is a very typical behavior that we see all over the place in all industries and all countries that we're doing business today. That is, sales gets very excited because there's this potentially great opportunity coming along. Have they done all their homework right? Do they know the customer well enough? Well, to be honest, sometimes that's a bit doubtful. On the other hand, they get very excited and they want to win the deal. So they come in with this request, throw it over the fence, and it's basically the pre-sales team that is requested to, so the more technical audience in the team, that is basically given all the work to, could you answer quickly all these, could you answer the questionnaire for me? Frequently it's like 300, 400, 500 questions or more. And so it's a nightmare. So my personal experience there is I've seen them in all kinds of forms. I've seen them in all kinds of sizes, and they're all just a nightmare.
What I hear indeed is a complexity that is badly mastered by people. I do hear disruptions in the workflow, probably.
Yep.
A lack of quality oversight.
Yep.
And very often resulting in incomplete or even blatantly wrong answers.
Yeah, that is something that I've also experienced as I was running like 10 teams across Europe at a specific moment in time. I was sometimes wondering when there was this large global company and they send out this tender, and we had teams in multiple countries that were replying to it because the customer had said, we're not yet sure whether UK is going to drive this project. It could be Switzerland, or it could be Poland, or it could be somewhere else.
Right. So you end up with a situation where you have a very complex tool set. While the tools are basically simple, documents, Excel, spreadsheets, and so on, but probably issues regarding languages, versions, people having multiple versions of the same document with subtle differences that are not well documented.
Yep.
Now, the company that you created now is called SEQUESTO. What does SEQUESTO mean?
Well, SEQUESTO, we initially came up with the name based on our initial idea. Our initial idea was not necessarily we're going to tackle the whole the whole tender RFP experience. The initial thinking was, as I had seen and experienced that the filling of questionnaires was a nightmare, the initial idea was we're going to build a security questionnaire optimization tool.
Right.
SEQUESTO.
SEQUESTO. But you do more than that now. And I'll now get to Evra. How did you get involved in this? How did you meet Patrick?
So it was, I think, end of 2019 that we met for the first time. So I was back from Berlin, where I used to work for N26. And I was working on a project on my own, on the side, like a more personal data project. And in that, in that environment, I met Patrick, who was working at the time on Compliance Board, which was a company that, it was a starting of a project. In fact, that was about compliance dashboard for companies, also a SaaS. And so we met on that project. We started to work together on that for a few months. And then we decided to move on and go to the next company or next project together. And that's where we met actually. And then Patrick had that idea of security questionnaire. And so we started looking at that. It was, at the time, it was this, during the first lockdown of the COVID. And so when we started, Patrick started doing a lot of user research, and I started coding the prototype.
You had plenty of time to overthink how to build this. What I understand is that now it's obviously very new technology, so it is based on a very modern IT architecture.
Yep.
It's very open, which means it's easy to build connectors, plugins, APIs, and use third-party tools.
Yep.
Now, first, a question regarding your market. You have now, in these few years, already become a very noteworthy scale-up who seems to be the thought leader in Europe with customers across the continent. What does the market look like in Europe? Because you mentioned working prior with Switzerland, UK, Germany. Are there any major differences between these geos, or is it very uniform? Can you actually serve this market with a single solution?
You can serve this market absolutely with a single solution, as long as you respect the specifics of some of the territories within the bigger region. What I mean is, if we would be working and living in a unified Europe, where we all do the business in exactly the same way, and we would all speak one language, it would be a lot easier. So we've built our platform with that kind of thoughts in mind. You've got like a large or a broad set of languages that are being spoken. You've got specific paperwork and documentation and proof points which are unique from one country to another. So when designing the product and building the product, we had in mind that kind of specifics to make sure that what we were building would not only serve a local audience, but it would be usable and it would serve a much broader public across multiple countries in Europe. And in the few years that we've been in the market now, we see that we're able to attract and service customers all over Europe, which looks extremely promising. And it clearly shows also to our audience, but not only to the audience, also to our investors, that we're able to scale this globally.
Een vraag. Tenders, RFPs, RFQs are written in a natural language, a human language, obviously. How do you deal with this? Because obviously there is a lot of freedoms in the way RFPs are written. How do you address the whole complexity of extracting this information, streamlining it so that the bid team can actually handle this in a very efficient and a very structured manner?
Yep. So what we use, in fact, is AI models that are multilingual. So we train the model on all type of data from different languages. And how those model works is that they create embeddings for the text that we give it based on tokenizer. And those tokenizer are, it's a bit technical, but it's these are multilingual. So they tend to create the same kind of embeddings for the same type of information, whatever the language is. And so what we do afterwards, once we have those embeddings, we can compare them, we can retrieve them, we can extract them from a text and so on. And so it's by really creating those embeddings that we are able to basically work with whatever language that we want.
What is the end game of this? What is the business value? What are the savings? Can you give some numbers, specific, generic averages with your current market?
Yeah, so I would say the nice thing with this is that we can automatically find the right or the similar questions that you have answered before, whatever the language, wherever they are in your library, and we can give them to you just in a second, so that you can then build your answer based on all the previous answer that you have provided before. And the gain of time is like at least 40% to go through a questionnaire of 100, 200 questions. So it's really a lot. And it's not only about time saving, it's about quality, because we help our user to avoid to do those repetitive tasks so that they can put their time and focus on the more interesting and important things in that process, which are more like creating content for their client, responding to their questions. And so it's not only about gain of time, it's also we try to improve the win rate because they can put more time in the quality of the answer. We see also more win rate, like a rate of at least 30% in win rates based on
Right. Now, this is something obviously that the head of sales will find tremendously interesting. However, in any company, there's more than just the head of sales or the CFO who's only interested in the bottom line of the company. Yep. There's also the teams who are answering this. Aren't these people afraid of being replaced by technology? Is AI not a threat to their existence? What would you say to that question?
Well, first of all, when we approach a company with our solution, we always aim to approach them on multiple levels. If you would only be talking to the individual that is answering questions or handling the process, there are indeed a number of those users that are a bit averse to all this new technology, simply out of the fear that, this is going to take my job, something that you see in all industries, especially on AI-related topics. Many people are afraid of what is this going to do for my job. Then you've got a second tier of people that are primarily looking at what's the opportunity? What will this bring me? How can this make my work easier? How can it allow me to do things faster, better, with a lot less effort? Those are the people that we're primarily trying to target. Because the people who are afraid of change, the people who are like, but I don't want to change anything because I've been doing it this way for 15 years, is not necessarily our ideal audience, to put it that way. So we try to, when we approach a company, we would be looking at different profiles. The sales leader wants to get something differently out of this kind of tooling. He wants to see more business. He wants to see the business go faster. He wants to see the business be procured with less effort and less cost.
Right.
So he wants to grow. The head of the tender desk, who's basically in charge of a number of people that do this job for a living, he's got other interests. He does not necessarily want to do it faster. He wants to deliver higher quality. He wants to get rid of the stress because each and every one of those projects comes with very strict deadlines. Sometimes people get this paperwork and they are given just a matter of a couple of weeks to deliver the full-blown book containing all the answers. So there's tremendous stress because there's a lot of people that need to work together. So when we talk to those profiles, we're primarily focusing on how can we make your life easier? What can we bring that will optimize not only the performance, but that takes the stress out of the whole thing? So how can we allow you to do stuff that is today, you have to do it, but it's costing you a lot of time and effort, and we can make that easier to do.
Now, Evra, you just mentioned it, the memory. I believe you have a name for that even, a name in your company. The library?
Yep. The collective memory.
The collective memory.
Yeah.
And this is important because as I see it, every company nowadays is facing the same issues with staff. There's a lot of churn of staff. It's difficult to hire people. A lot of experienced people are retiring, are replaced by younger people who are, first of all, hard to find and who not necessarily have had a lot of overlap with existing customers, existing staff, which means that some information has been lost in the transition. So I would even argue that a solution like SEQUESTO's is crucial in preserving some of this company's memory.
For sure. Yep.
Also, because of the rapidity of change of staff, you would need to align the way people address these issues. And I believe that's what you do, right? You really align workflows so that even newcomers within a short time can
find
their way and do this. Can you elaborate a little bit on a typical workflow? You onboard a new customer, so maybe you can explain how you do this.
So, we have our onboarding flow. And so what we do first is we ask them to gather a whole lot of old questionnaire, RFP, RFIs that they've answered previously that we then upload in the collective memory. Or we do that ourselves, or they do it. It can also be like white papers, product descriptions, company information, everything that is containing information that is relevant to answer those types of documents like tenders and so on. And then once this is done, we move to the project side of the platform, and that's where the full flow happens, in fact. So there, what we do is they create a new project whenever they receive a new RFP to answer. And then we have a specific flow that we go through, which is composed of 3 steps. First, we analyze the documents that they upload in that project, so the documents that they need to answer. We extract all kind of information, the question they need to answer, the attachments they need to provide, if there is any exclusion criteria, selection criteria, red flags. We extract all of that depending on the type of files and so on. Then we process that information. So for the questions, we go then to the second step. For the questions, we help them to answer those questions based on the information present in the library. For the attachment, for example, then we try to find in the library as well all the relevant documents that need to be attached and provided with the answer of the RFP. And then we move to the next step, which is the proposal step, which is where we create a final proposal with all the content that they have provided. And we put that into a proposal that they can then send back to their client. And so these are the 3 steps, 3 main steps. And the vision of the product about this is that we will add more steps in the future. So we see that now we try to stick to how the company work and be flexible enough so that they can easily integrate the tool within their company. But our vision with the product is that we add more modules so that we help them also to be better with their processes. We are in touch with multiple RFP expert consultants in different countries that give us a lot of feedback about what are the ideal processes to win a bid and an RFP. And we try to translate those ideal processes within our tool so that our customer can also benefit from this knowledge.
This triggers several follow-up questions, actually. So first of all, it seems like you have a very strong partnership with your clients. It's definitely not one-way street. I hear from what you say is that you actually get feedback from your customers, and you actually use this to improve your product and your solution. Correct. Yeah. A second question is the workflow, the collaborative aspect. You have multiple people working on tenders usually. Could be 3 people, it could be teams of 20, 30 people. I've seen situations like this in sometimes even more. How can you keep a good oversight of what's happening? Because somebody who's typically leading the bid team, the bid manager, whatever you would call him, needs to ensure the deadlines are met. So he sometimes have to chase people, but also he must continuously monitor the quality of what people are doing. Are they complete? Is there anything missing? Are there gaps? Are there things obviously wrong? Is there content not fully adjusted to this specific RFP? How does this work? Is there a way for this person to keep a good oversight of how the collaboration is working?
So one thing that is important to know first is that we have 2 types of user within our platform. We have the coordinator, who are those persons that need to keep an eye on everything. And then we have the contributor, who are person who have very technical knowledge that can provide input on specific questions, but they are not managing the full project of responding to an RFP. And so our main users are the coordinators, and we help them in all of that, in fact, and with multiple features. So we help them to distribute the work that needs to be done. So all the questions that needs to be answered, they can distribute to those contributors or to other coordinators. We have a level for the answering of the question. Then they can also assign a reviewer to that question. Then what we do is we track the time that people spend on those questions so that they can afterwards have a more general view on the full process of answering, how much time they spend, who spent time on what, and so on. And then with all the tracking that we do, we also give them a progress. We show them who has answered all these questions, who is lagging behind. We then allow them to automatically send reminder for those people if they forgot they needed to answer questions. If someone goes on holiday, for example, they can in one click just reassign all the questions from that person to another person in the team. And so with our overview of a project and then dashboard throughout that shows basically all the projects at a time, we really give them a nice helicopter view on all the different projects going on. And so that way, I think, Patrick, you can confirm, but I think that gives them way more control and insurance in the fact that they complete their job. And
I think that is very reassuring because everybody involved in tendering will probably know of situations where tenders have been submitted literally 5 minutes before closing time.
Most of them do.
Yes, exactly. Patrick, SEQUESTO is basically a SaaS solution, which means that all this content lives on your servers. Now, this contains a lot of probably highly sensitive corporate information of your customers and their services and their products and their prices. Security is absolutely essential in this. How do you deal with this?
Well, security is indeed a very important element in our offering. And it's not that we underestimated it, but we've experienced that it is in every conversation with large enterprises, it comes up as a very, very important topic. Now, at the same time, as I spent over 25 years in the cybersecurity space, I owe it to myself and to the company to build a very secure platform. So from day one, we had security in mind with everything that we've done. First of all, we've chosen a cloud provider and a specific data center environment, AWS in Frankfurt, which is still known as one of the most secure data centers out there. Now, they provide a set of security features and capability, which I believe is a good basis, but absolutely not enough for what we want to offer to our customers. So from that perspective, we have added a broad set of different, call it security layers, all kind of security technologies that we have put in and around and on top of our application and our data. One would expect that that is potentially enough, but clearly we've come to the conclusion that we still want to do more, because today our large enterprise customers, they do not simply find that enough. It's not that we can say, yeah, we've got encryption and we've got strong authentication and we use firewalling and IPS and all the other layers of security. We are currently implementing a security and compliance framework that allows us to monitor and report on our security and compliance posture. And for our large enterprise customers, we are currently preparing even a real-time live dashboard that we will open up to our enterprise customers so they can basically see what we are seeing from a security and a compliance perspective. So to our enterprise customers, we find it absolutely necessary to be completely transparent from that perspective.
And I can add something there. In terms of security, it's not only about the infrastructure. When we go through also a certification, ISO and SOC 2 certification process, and there what I see and what we see in general is that security is also a lot about people. So there are a lot of processes we need to implement to make sure like who has access to what. We need to know all the time, all of those kind of things. What are the processes when we onboard or offboard someone in the team? This is more the most important thing in terms of security, the people. That's yeah.
Correct. Yes.
And especially as a scale up, the being worthy of getting that trust from your customers is all what it's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. This is not only about delivering a neat product that solves a problem. This is also about being trustworthy and making sure that we're transparent, that we're open, and that we share with our customers.
But I believe you're in for the long haul with your customers. Obviously, this is something they will need on a continuous basis over many years. So it is absolutely crucial that you not just earn this trust, but keep it.
Yep, absolutely.
Everard, I've got a follow-up question on the collective memory or library that you used. In what way is your approach different from just a big structured data set or content repository? Because it's more than that.
Yep, indeed. So the big difference from a well-structured library is that you do not need to look for what you need in that library. We take it for you directly. So that means whenever you need to answer a question, you don't need to go in your SharePoint, for example, in the right folder and then the right subfolder, find the right type of file, and then in that file of 80 pages, find the piece of text that you need. We just automatically find the piece of text that you need and we show it to you. We find that piece of text, but also the 5 or the 4 other most relevant pieces of text that are present in the library. And that's a big difference that we do compared to a manual search, I would say, in the library with keywords.
I believe, Patrick, you once mentioned a very nice analogy, right? With being in a library. Imagine I'm someone going into a library. I'm looking for specific information, and I know vaguely what I want, but I don't really know how to look it up. So I could use keywords, but it's not even clear what category I need to search in. So what's the analogy that you've used in this respect?
The analogy that I frequently use when I talk to customers who say, "Yeah, but we've got this massive library and it's well structured," and very frequently you've got an individual there who basically is extremely proud because he or she has set up that structure. And if you look at that kind of approach, it's a great approach as long as the librarian is still there, as long as the individual who set up the structure, he or she will know their way around. So if you ask the librarian, they will know where to find whatever it is that you're looking for. Now, the reality of life is that even when you set this up very structured and very properly done, once you open up the library to all kind of different visitors to your audience, and they start taking out stuff and putting it back in and adding stuff to the library, it becomes absolutely messy. And in no time, it becomes an absolute nightmare because even the librarian starts to find it very difficult to retrieve the relevant piece of information fast. That's what it's all about. If you give the librarian plenty of time, eventually they will find what they're looking for. But if I have to answer 400 questions, I don't want to spend 20 minutes on finding an answer and then move over to the next question. I don't have time for that.
It's about scaling,
Yeah.
volume and scaling.
So what we do, we basically flip around the traditional way of working. You go look in the library, and potentially with the help of the librarian, you will find it. So what we do, and I frequently say, when you're looking at a question, it's almost like having your super experienced, personalized librarian sitting on your shoulder, looking at the question with you. And that librarian will say, you don't need to go and search because I know what you're looking for, and let me just quickly find it.
Right.
And the librarian will say, here you are, Patrick. Here are 4 similar questions with their answers. And oh, by the way, here are 3 other pieces of text out of the library of thousands of documents that contain relevant input for you to create an answer if you're not happy with the propositions that I've given you.
So basically, SEQUESTO entails a very trustworthy, very knowledgeable librarian that assists you all the time, and not just in speed and volume, but also without compromising on quality.
Yep.
Right? That would be a good summary.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
One more thing. What will the future bring? In our previous conversation, you've mentioned a few things
Yep.
of the future. And we also learned that you are actively listening to your customers. You get feedback in order to improve your product. But what are your takeaways on the roadmap? What are the highest things on your wish list? What are you currently implementing? What may people expect within a reasonable time frame?
Yep. So next to those feedbacks that we try to integrate as soon as possible, that brings additional features to the product, we have 3 main development axes. One is what I already said about those processes. So we try to add more modules to improve the processes and help companies being better answering RFPs, bid, and so on. So that's one axis. The second axis is more on the integration side. So as you said, we have an open stack where we can integrate with a whole lot of other tools. And we try to always add new tools there so that we can integrate as much as we can. And and then it's better for our customer. It's seamless for them to integrate. And then we perfectly integrate into their flow and their current stack of tools. And the last axis is more on the AI side. So with the AI, then all the new models that we see out there every week, we try to use all of them and integrate with all of them as well to add some more automation in our tool, just to make it better. And
obviously, AI has been in a very, not an evolutionary, but a revolutionary phase these days. So I understand that this is something that is continuously being worked on. Yep. Are customers allowed to suggest their own integrations if they bring a specific system? Are you able to make that also available to to other customers? If there's an integration, does that become a generic piece of integration for your
so what we're doing from that perspective, the idea is not that we, SEQUESTO, are going to build what they call a connector to another piece of software. There are specialized vendors out there who basically have a unified API that already connects to dozens, and some of them even hundreds of platforms. We are expanding our own APIs so that we can hook into that unified API. And through that unified API, that is going to open up a broad range of integration opportunities. Does that mean that we're going to support everything for everybody? Probably not. But it introduces an array of opportunities which is unseen. And it also means that we can integrate fast with new technologies that pop up in a matter of months, instead of the traditional way where you would say like, okay, yeah, we'll look into it and we'll start developing a connector. So first we need to hire a specialist or a couple of specialists in that field. That is completely past tense. It doesn't work like that anymore.
But I believe this is where you benefit from being a fairly new company that has been using a very open architecture, using open stacks and so on.
Yeah, we can deliver that
Obviously.
kind of new technology at a very high speed.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not yet slowed down by a legacy of 20 years.
Well, it seems like you are in the process of creating a revolution in the whole process of RFP automation. Let's go through our key points that we discussed in this episode. So, created this company a couple of years ago. You've been growing at an incredible rate throughout Europe already. You basically enable people to improve their workflows, higher quality, save time, have more accurate replies, have better oversight. Probably, we didn't touch that, but probably also working better in joint ventures where different suppliers may collaborate for an RFP process. This is also a point of conflict. Maybe that's a topic for a future podcast. And overall, it benefits everybody. The tedious parts of the process go away. They will be able to answer more RFPs in a shorter amount of time with a higher degree of accuracy.
And less stress.
And less stress. Very important. And that brings us almost to the next topic of the next podcast. And this is about growth, but keeping in mind the human component. And this will be another very important aspect of this company. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank
you.
you.
We'll meet you next time.
Perfect. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on The Winning Bid, Mastering the RFP Process.